Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, Righteous Force, Chocolate Saiyan and 10th Man, together with Spurs and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
I think today's going to be an interesting show.
Spurs had
Good
about
morning.
a 3-minute question in the pre-show and literally didn't leave enough time for me to even answer it before doing the intro. There we go. You got forewarned, Spurs, so you didn't get an answer. We'll get to it after housekeeping, though, if that's good by you.
Sure.
Okay. Any signs of a physical geometric Earth curve edge?
No.
Any signs of a physical... Well, ask the question again.
Any signs of a physical geometric Earth curve edge?
Physical geometric... Definitely not at the horizon.
Not from Transylvania.
Any signs of Earth curvature?
That took a bite
nope.
out of the argument.
Oh, this is like
Wow.
blood out of a stone.
These guys are neck deep in it, aren't they?
Enough puns.
so
Any
vain.
signs of axial rotation?
No.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No, because none of them are science.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nope.
Any evidence of the R value? Hey, Arwin.
Oh. No, but Mr. Sensible thinks that his R value might have been debunked. Mitchell from Australia has recently released a video in the last couple of hours. He's done a few in the last couple of days. Mr. Sensible still thinks it's okay to double down on changing the radius of Earth.
Right, let's play it out.
That at best, if everything you said was correct, and it wasn't, then you'd have disproved the radius of 3959, i.e. it would be a slightly different radius.
A slightly different radius? Well, let's do the actual maths then. Here it is set out for everyone to go over in your own leisure. Using the values from the Black Swan image of a 1-foot observer height and a 10-mile distance horizon, you can clearly see we have a 264,000 mile radius.
Thank you for that, Mitchell. You're on it like flies on you-know-what. Big shout out to you.
What was really interesting is that he only credited Mitchell with 1 mile from 3959 to 3960. Now, aside from the fact that he can't change the fixed size of the radius, because that's the value that they give us, the fact that he was doing it just by 1 mile tells me that the guy can't scale, because that 1 mile doesn't make the horizon go behind the oil platforms. It needs to be huge, like half the size of the sun, for it to be able to explain that to 10 miles. And we clearly see further than 10 miles. So the fact that he wants to change it to explain it is bad, but then he credits us with just 1 mile difference on his radius shows that the guy is completely and utterly incompetent. And there's a word we can use to describe somebody that's incompetent if we wanted to insult them. Does anybody know what that word might be?
Moron.
A little bit.
Anyway,
Yeah. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
only in your mind.
Wait, so if the radius got bigger, does that mean that the core got bigger too? And wouldn't that affect gravity
Yeah.
too?
And the distance to the sun must change, and the distance to Pluto must change, and the distance to Venus must change.
And the value of gravity based on the presupposition that mass is attracted by mass as well.
What's gravity?
Yeah, it's not that, but people will still presuppose that. And so
Not
that
what?
presupposition
It's all
also-
nonsense.
Yeah, Mitchell also covered that.
They got a problem.
Hold on, I'll just plug this. So I'll post a link in the live chat right now if you're watching live to this video, because he does go through that, towards... I'll just play you out a little bit. So he's going through various different things that would
You
change.
stab your globe in the face.
And
Anyway, I won't try and find the snippets. It'll drag things out. But nevertheless, I'll put a link to his show. But he does go through various different things that would be demolished if you start fiddling with R. But there we go. These people don't think far enough ahead. They're just like, yeah, I said it just changed by 1 mile. Oh yeah, well that isn't what would work out by virtue of you actually doing a dip angle measurement based on the black swan. It would take it to 2/3 the size of the sun. So suddenly that leaves you with not 1 mile difference, you little weasel. But I like your sentiment. Oh, I only meant 1 mile. Oh, really? That's what it works out if in the imagery, does it? No. Why do you think everyone's relinquishing the physicality of the horizon all of a sudden, except you? What, so now you're going to actually say, no, it's still physical, just a bit bigger. Let's see how much bigger based on the maths. Oh, well, Mitchell's already done it for me. Well done, Mitchell. Thank you. Any evidence that you can have a gas pressure without a container? Hey, Adam.
Yeah, there was a claim.
Yeah, it was in the same video.
Yeah, it was. He cited some gas plasma in a chamber, and then said that he can demonstrate gas pressure in a vacuum inside a chamber, but he completely didn't realize that he was describing plasma. Apparently, gas and plasma are not the same thing. One of them's got electrostatic charge potential or something of that nature, and it reacts to magnets, whereas gas pressure that we normally breathe doesn't. So it would make it a non sequitur point that he's relying on to demonstrate gas pressure, because plasma is not the same as gas. Meekin, is that right?
Yeah, it's funky, isn't it, plasma? It's kind of like a fourth state of matter, isn't it? It's kind of fluid like a liquid, but incoherent like a gas, but not as it is cohesive slightly, isn't it? In of itself, it needs itself to hold together. So it's a.
But we definitely don't breathe gas plasma, though, do we?
You burn your lungs. That
sure, but Mitchell got it right the first time. So same exact video, and his response was to say words to the effect of, "Well, you've got a container." And Mr. Sensible was like, "Yeah, I've got a container." It's like, well, obviously then this holds true. You can't have gas pressure without a container. He's like, "Yeah, but within the container, the ionised gas is not got a container." You're like, what are you double speaking about, you moron?
Actually, also, wouldn't this question be more complete by saying any evidence of a gas pressure gradient without a container? Because then that just hits their next response, right?
Well, yeah, but in this instance, he's saying, look, I can have gas pressure inside a container without a container. That's what he's essentially saying. So here's my gas pressure container, and inside this container there's going to be a magical process that creates gas pressure without a container. And Mitchell's just gone, what about the container? And he's gone, well, obviously you need the container. It's just comical.
Well, they're going to bring up the same nonsense, answers, regardless of whether you say gradient or not. I'm just saying, but yeah, obviously, they're not even close.
I mean, they're still not even understanding. Chris MCM came into 24/7 yesterday and still tried to assert that the geometric horizon is a straw man, that they don't believe that the Q is correct because they think it's about belief and not based on their geometry, and it's just nonsense. And then this is continuing after conceding that his his geometric horizon can't see and that the horizon we do see is apparent and changes position. So it's like they're conceding, but they don't even realize that they're conceding. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah, they haven't spotted the flamethrower, so they're getting burnt, but they don't even realise it. It's like they're immune to it.
I was absolutely right. I think I just need to clarify something a bit. But there you can see video of gas plasma being contained without walls.
The fusion
It's
reactor.
being contained by the magnets.
That we're seeing.
It's being contained by the magnets. It's not touching the walls. And
Why can't
you
we
think
just? Why does it have to have walls? No, can I just say why does it have to?
Because
have
you
walls?
guys
Can we
keep
not
saying
do
you can't have gas pressure without a container. What I'm
You've
demonstrating
clearly got
there,
a container. It's being contained
magnetic.
inside the fusion reactor.
Yes, but it's not touching the fusion reactor. It's
just comical. Well, there's your big container.
What?
So we're asking for gas pressure without a container. So what does he stuff on screen as a demonstration of gas pressure without a container? Well, a giant container. And then says, well, of course you've got to have the container to create the field to have gas pressure without a container. So you need a container to have gas pressure without a container. Ugh. Idiot.
Any proof that you can have that you can have not a container within a container?
Yeah, or any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container, which is precisely what we've asked all along.
It would seem to
You
me
can't even have a
one is-
vacuum
if
without a
you,
container, right?
It truly is comical. I mean, it's absolutely comical. Like you said, we're, without the container, but here's the container. But so their head is thinking, but there's no container here. But do they see the container? It's just bizarre. It's comical.
Yeah, it's like a magician. Don't look at the container. Look inside the container. There's no container inside the container.
Exactly.
Seems to me this one, Nathan, is a demonstration of if you've got some powerful magnets, you can generate plasma, then you can demonstrate a gas pressure differential, as long as you've got a container first. That seems to be the only inference you can draw from that.
Yeah, supporting our assertion that, well, or a quote from Conspiracy Cats. Quote, without the container there can be no pressure. End quote, Conspiracy Cats 2019. And he's absolutely correct for a change. You can't have gas pressure without a container. And it's nice that he's backing us by showing a container. Let's just shout out a couple of super chats. So shout out to Alexander, who also smashed the super chat in my little Lewis Rossman clip. So thank you very much for both times. Any signs of globe believers... Go on.
I'm saying at least they're listening to us. I mean, at least they're attempting to do this, what they would call an experiment. So it's not like it's fallen on deaf ears. They understand that we're asking for gas pressure without a container, and they're presenting things that they think is the question. So at least they're trying.
At least they're trying. That's right. I'll just finish off that super chat. Any signs of globe believers defending geometrical horizon? No, Alexander. Just them walking into the flamethrowers. But again, it's nice that you're keeping up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Thank you very much for your super chat. Also, Moas Tone, thank you very much for the super chat. It says, how do I join the discussion on Discord? There's a link in the info box. Just click it. It takes you there. The room's currently full, so you have to wait for a gap, I'm afraid. Anywho, that concludes the housekeeping.
I can bounce if someone needs.
No, don't worry. Newbies may try, and if the show's full, the show's full. Bingo and various other people.
Usually folks ask me to move them in, and I hook them up.
Thank you.
There's various people that never talk that we can move if necessary. Bingo, for example.
I like the Mr. Sensible video. He very neatly killed and roasted your black swan.
How did he do that?
By showing that you can
And here we go.
refract a horizon and show more beyond the geometrical horizon.
Beyond the
of any
geometric
sphere.
horizon. So the refracted horizon that he demonstrated, Brenda, isn't geometric then?
Well, correct. The apparent horizon and the geometrical horizon are two different
That's redundant.
things. Everybody knows
It's redundant. Redundant, Brenda. All horizons by definition are
that. No, they're
apparent.
different.
All horizons
That's not
by...
true.
I'll try once more. How many times are you going to interrupt me, bitch? Shut up! Listen up, you stupid fucktard. I'm talking to you, Brenda, you dumb bitch. All horizons are apparent. It's the apparent position where the sky
wrong.
appears.
You're wrong.
Shut the fuck up, you dumb bitch. Shut up! I'm sick and tired of hearing you
But
dumb
you're wrong.
fucks
There's more
tell
than
me
one
that there's two. Shut up
You're just an
and
idiot.
listen once. I haven't got to the end of the sentence. You've interrupted me 3 times. Now I'm shouting at you. So shut up. I don't have to shout at you a 5th and a 6th and a 7th time. I'm going to finish this statement without interruption from a fundy moron who does not appreciate that all horizons, by definition, are apparent. It's not giving you a second horizon. Okay? All of them are apparent. This term for a second one that you're going to invent is redundant. Do you hear me?
The very source that you quote lists 3 horizons.
I haven't quoted any source. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm not quoting anybody. I, Nathan Oakley, am telling you, a moron, that it's part of the definition of a horizon. By definition, it's the apparent position where the sky meets the ground, or the position where the sky appears, there's your apparent, in the definition, appears to meet the ground. So saying the apparent position where the sky meets the ground, or the apparent position where the sky apparently meets the ground, is totally redundant! You stupid bitch! Do you hear me?
Yelling doesn't make you right.
Doesn't
And
make you
the very
understand.
source
That's
that
what it
you
doesn't make you
guys
do.
cite
You're dumb.
lists
You're
3
dumb. It
horizons.
doesn't matter how many
And I can-
times
I
I
can
tell
cite
you. It
additional
doesn't
sources.
matter how many times I tell
I
you.
can
You're using
cite-
a redundant term to give you 2 horizons, and we only have 1. You using this extra redundant word won't give us 2 horizons. Now, you've said the one that he showed looming is beyond where the geometric one would be. That's 2. And we've only got 1. Your second one utilises a redundant term. I'm sick of telling you.
Well, that's just authoritarianism. Just because you say something doesn't make it true.
It's part of the
Science doesn't give a
definition. The apparent position where the sky meets the ground, or the position where the sky appears to meet the ground. So if I say the apparent position where the sky appears to meet the ground, I've got redundancy in there. It's already apparent. It's not authoritarianism. It's a fact. You're just dumb.
Yelling doesn't make you more
Oh, that's the
right.
same shit
What
rebuttal. You
makes-
can fuck right off now. I'm sick of you. That's the same shit rebuttal. Yelling the fact that it's part of the definition, and you saying, oh, well, yelling it doesn't make it real. Yeah, it's part of the smegging definition. I say it till I'm blue in the face to all of you retards. Hi, retards. My name's Nathan Oakley, and I'm here to tell you that apparent horizon is redundant. All horizons, by definition, are apparent, because it's the apparent position where the sky meets the ground, or the position where the sky appears, there's your apparent, to meet the ground. So you don't need an extra apparent in there, you bunch of morons. Giving you an extra horizon by using redundancy. That's all she's doing, and she thinks that, what, telling me off for shouting at her when I've told her in excess of 60 times that it's redundant? No, it's just infuriating, because the people we're dealing with are thick. Brenda's stupid. Doesn't matter how many times I tell her that it's redundant, she'll still come here and criticise my tone.
She's gone now, though, Nathan, right?
Yeah, I'll serve her to do. I'm sick of her.
Let's bring this back down to a common level for a minute. I was doing some research on high school kids, further education kids, that means going to college, and university kids that are learning undergrad studies in physics. and I learned that gravity, they don't teach gravity as a conceptual bending of space-time until they get to degree level. And even then, if you think about the numbers, every school in England has high school leavers, that half of which go on to further education, the other half go into some form of work or unemployed. And then of them people that go to college for further education, some of them go back to university and do other things, but the majority of them go and get a job. But the ones that go to university, only the ones that go through to physics learn about Einstein. Everybody up to that point of undergraduate study at university don't get taught Einstein, they get taught Newtonian. Well, we know that Newtonian physics or Newtonian gravitation has been superseded and replaced by Einstein. But if you only get taught that in physics at undergrad level, that means like 95, 96, 97% of the school leavers, the college leavers, most of the kids that learn stuff are not being taught that gravity is not a force. So how big of a deal is that? Well, that's kind of like telling everybody that murder isn't a crime unless you go to university where they teach you that murder is a crime. And can you imagine what the effect would be if kids weren't told or were expressly told that murder was not a crime? They'd be going around killing everybody. Or if they got told that burglary wasn't a crime, they'd be going around stealing cars or houses. It's only when they get to university level that burglary and murder get taught to them that it's a crime. Or gravity's not a force. But everybody else going through the school system believes gravity's a force, which is why all the mongs in this topic, the retards on their side, still think gravity's a force. But think about the numbers put from the numbers perspective. If kids are not being taught that gravity is not a force, they're being taught that it is a force, and the vast majority of them don't go on to university to study physics where they get taught that it's not a force, that means 99% of the whole population thinks gravity is a force, right? But if 99% of the population thought that murder wasn't a crime, and only the undergrads that went to law at university got taught that it was a crime, people would be going around killing everybody because they believed that it was not a crime. So in the context of changing it to a relative subject that you can all relate to, if everybody thought the opposite of what you know to be true because you are in that field, then that tells you the magnitude and the importance of why children being taught that gravity is a force is a problem. Because even though I don't agree with Einstein, and I am not pushing his story at all, the least he can do is be taught the current physics. Why would they be taught physics that is out of date? Wrong. What, just because the maths works out and it can explain it mathematically? Well, if it's not a force, what are they being taught and why?
I'll tell you why.
Everybody comes out thinking it's a force.
You asked 3 times, and so I'll answer. So the reason that you get told it's a force is because at a conceptual level, I remember me being a small child swinging a bucket round and thinking about gravity. Because that's how they've programmed you. Well, why doesn't all the water fly off? You keep telling me that you've got to argue against fundies that think it's a force, and how wonderful it is when something that's totally non-related is useful for the fundies that think gravity's a force. Well, it's because at a childlike level, you're going to ask yourself, if we're spinning and hurtling, why isn't everything flying off? So if you've got a force that's just instantly there as a buzzword, then that solves that problem there and then. Now, if you were to say to them there and then, well, there's no force, it's not a force that gravity's providing, it's actually the bending of space-time. Well, your average Joe child isn't going to comprehend that at a level that just solves the problem of why doesn't everything fly off. Which is what you ask yourself when you're told it's spinning. Well, at least what I ask myself.
But let me paraphrase it for Adam. If I said to Adam in his field of chemistry that H2O wasn't H2O, and he was told all the way through his studies up to university level that H2O was something else, but only at university was he told that H2O is actually H2O, it fundamentally changes his thinking, because everything at that point always made sense.
Go on, Adam.
That's true for chemistry, isn't it? So maybe not as obtuse as H2O not being H2O, but certainly in terms of the descriptions of atoms, electron orbitals, it goes from, it's a very similar sort of thing. It goes from a physical thing where electrons are there with no mass or physically orbiting to again a probability function when you're at degree level with regards to it being almost in a cloud.
Yeah, but you started off by saying maybe not as obtuse as. Well, how obtuse is the argument for gravity? It's fundamental in the paradigm. I would say that it needs to be that obtuse to make the point.
Yeah, well, it's not as severe. That's what I'd say. But I think that's quite common, and probably why it gets past, Tony, because it is quite common to simplify and take some of the more complex detail out, but try and hold things true. And I think the difference with gravity is at the most fundamental level, whereas when you're describing the electrons orbiting, whether it's they're physically moving on a spinny circle around, or it's the fundamentals are the same. You just going into sort of nuances of how it's there. Whereas at the gravitational level, you are fundamentally describing a very different concept. You are being taught that a magical, mystical force between masses attracts, is generated. Whereas then you go on to learn that that's actually fundamentally bunkum. So I suppose it is a much more obtuse.
But in that context, you have to ask the question, well, why are they even being taught something that's wrong in the first place? Why can't they either leave it open-ended or expressly state nothing about it because it's too complicated at that level, or tell them the truth? Tell them it's Einstein, but it is complicated. There's a lot of arithmetic. You'll get to it at degree level. Because if they leave that hole there, kids will naturally ask the question. But to tell them it's something that's fundamentally false is lying. And my view is that if you're going to defend that that's acceptable, you're actually encouraging lying, because even at that level, kids are asking what's making things move, right? We're 30, 40, 50 years old and we're asking the same question. But kids at the age of 5 or 8 or 10 are also asking that question. Why can't they be told that gravity is not a force? I don't see why lying to them is of any benefit.
Because I've just
Same
explained
reason
this. But it's a benefit to the lie.
They just don't understand. Kids just...
What sucks is that they'll have Einstein's and Newton's posters all over the place, but they won't throw George Mooser's poster up there with a quote saying, "We can, we do, we must consider Newtonian gravity as a force." Doesn't mean it really is one, but we don't necessarily have to work at the really is level.
You really need a really is force when you're telling a kid that the Earth spins. That's the bottom line here, Anthony. Now, where their process of programming out that nonsense at degree level is such that you won't be asking the question about why isn't the water flying off. But as far as I'm concerned, there's only one necessity to tell you that there's a force, and it's for all the reasons that they argue with you, the ones that are non-degree educated, about how we do have a force.
Yeah. Right. But I would then say, you just said the only reason to tell them there's a force is to. But I would then say, no, actually, if it isn't a force, surely you're better off saying, well, at this level, we can't tell you that answer because it's complicated and you've got to wait to degree, rather than tell them an overt lie.
No,
surely
you can't leave somebody who's generally of a cognition that they're going to be questioning things, i.e. kids. All they do is ask questions all day. So if you haven't got an answer for them that makes sense, they'll keep asking the same question. Now, that's the last thing you need when you've got somebody that you're trying to tell you're on a spinning ball. You just want them to accept it and accept it quickly. So the quicker you can get that information programmed into them and alleviate any concerns that it might not work, the better. You're not going to leave them with an open-ended, well, we haven't got a force to solve your problem, little child, when you ask me why stuff isn't flying off. We've just got a bending of a conceptual medium known as space. Yeah, that ain't going to fly. You just got to say, yeah, the gravity force holds it all on. And the boy or the girl goes, really? Thank you. Now I can get on playing with my ball.
I asked that question until I was told that this is what's in the textbook. I can't really tell you any much more, and you need to know it for the test.
Yeah.
I asked a similar question. I was told, look, I just got to teach it. I don't even believe it.
Yeah. But can you imagine, though, if we were told when we were kids, rather than them two answers that you've just identified, what if we were actually told, listen, this stuff's complicated and no one really gets it, But we're told that this is it. But if you really want to know the current position in physics, you've got to go and learn it at degree level. I mean, that's just going to make kids ask more questions, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a better position than telling them lies.
No, not for the people who want you to think that you're on a spinning ball. That's the worst possible position, leaving them wanting to ask more questions. Like I just said, that's the opposite of what they need.
So what you're saying is if you want children to think that they're on a spinning ball, it's okay to lie to them in school.
Yes, that would be their, or whoever the education board is, their justification for it, yes.
Tony, if I was trying to start a cult, I wouldn't start out by saying, here's what this cult believes. I know it's a little bit shaky and contradictory in points, and some of it's just completely made up, but hopefully you might get it down the line. You're not going to get many people on board, are you? You've got to preach it as if you believe it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's got to be convincing from the outset. Now, once people are indoctrinated thoroughly enough for that not to be a concern anymore, then you can tell them about the overarching explanation, because cognitively people are reasonably, if they're at degree level, they're reasonably smart. And therefore, if a problem comes up where 8-year-old boy challenges degree-educated man or woman and says, well, how does all the water stay on? They'll get a George Mooser answer. They can rely on someone at that level of education to give a George Mooser answer and cognitively spin it however it needs to be spun. Now, someone eloquent like George Mooser will give the quote that Chocolate just gave us and say, well, you have to consider it a force even though at the really is level it isn't. Now, that's a nice, eloquent bit of doublespeak that's going to confuse an 8-year-old or anybody a bit more stupid than the person who's at degree level. So Adam, for example, goes through the whole process of learning about how Cavendish doesn't really work and then goes on to degree level and they say, yeah, that's a load of old bollocks. But by then, he's smart enough to cognitively wire himself however is necessary to keep his paradigm, because it's his paradigm now, it's hardwired. He's going to keep that paradigm alive because it's part of the programming to keep itself perpetuating. Now, I'm trying to simultaneously say that there's a they that want to keep this in the education system. The they is just us, individuals, autonomous people that can make these decisions and process out this cognition into the education system. But if you got that guy who's done exactly that, basically lied because it's a problem they don't want solving and don't want to spend 5 lessons with an 8-year-old, he's just going to put it in there because cognitively it's justified. Now, if you got hold of him and started, you tied him to a chair and said, why are you indoctrinating the children with this lie? Or you drug him through the court processes or whatever, he'd probably crap his pants. He wouldn't have a clue what was going on. He'd just be like, that made sense to me. I'm not dealing with the degree level education at this level. The books say we tell them about bloody Newtonian forces. So that's what I'm doing. What's your problem? It's just there in the books now. So in other words, there's no boogeyman. Hold on, I want to make my point. My point is there's not necessarily a boogeyman. We're all guilty of doing this ourselves. And the guy you get to the end of this chain, if you were to search down the liar in this instance, as you're labelling him, he might not be a liar. It might just be Joe Normal who's just carrying on perpetuating the nonsense and squaring the circle in his own mind as he does so.
Okay, so let's bring it down to the real world in this topic. We do have a teacher who does know that there are problems with the current heliocentric model, and he knows that gravity is not a force in the name of conspiracy cats. He is lying to children. He's telling children that gravity is a force, right?
No, he's the guy. He is that guy. He's the guy I've just described. So he's a great example. He's a great example. He's cognitively squared the circle. Now, the fact that it's not quite square and that causes him cognitive pain is neither here nor there. He's made an attempt to square that circle in his own cognition. We know because he's still a globehead. So therefore, there's some justifiable cognition he's got. We're never going to be privy to it, but it must be the case, overtly the case, publicly the case.
He knows that gravity is defined by Einstein.
Right, crystal ball time. You're divining his thoughts, are you?
No, he knows because we've told him time and time again.
This is the problem, Nathan. I don't quite get your position. If we know right now,
hold on, 3 people, one at a time. Hold on, Spurs and Darwin. Let Anthony finish his thought. Then Spurs, then Darwin. Go ahead, Anthony.
Conspiracy Cats has been told 100 times that gravity is not a force, and the current authority for it not being a force is Albert Einstein. And we know how it's defined, and we know what causes it. So when you're saying that the average Joe Blogs physics teacher might not be actually lying, okay, I could kind of agree with that. They're just telling the kids what they get told to tell them. But not the same with Conspiracy Cats. He absolutely knows that there's a contradiction because he's in the topic. So he can't get the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, fine. I'll read out Light Energy's comment. You can comment on that, Anthony, then we'll go to Spurs. Light Energy, thank you very much for the super chat. She says, true for some, quote, we never free a mind once it's reached a certain age. It's dangerous. The mind has trouble letting go, end quote. Morpheus from The Matrix. Any comment, Anthony?
Yeah. I agree.
Right, well, he's just
Can
a
you
mind.
imagine if everybody out of high school, just high school, not college or university, imagine if everybody came out of high school not knowing what gravity, not knowing why Newton's apple fell from the tree, right? They all come out of high school thinking that they understand it because gravity is a force. But the reality is it's not a force. But if they came out of school not knowing that it was, if they came out of school knowing that it wasn't a force, I think that the world would be a much better place because we'd be all genuinely interested for what's making these things move.
Maybe.
I think it's crazy. Well, go on, Spurs.
Maybe.
Get up to their level.
Not you yet, Alan. Go ahead, Spurs.
Well, it's just kind of to follow up a little bit. You saw it there in America, Nathan Thompson go to the school, and he was told, well, that's not the right approach. So as he's shouting to the children, you've been lied to. Children hear that. They go and ask the teacher, have we been lied to? The teacher says, no, of course you haven't been lied to. He's talking nonsense. So then now we know actively here and now that we have information on the contrary. So what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to just sit back, relax, and just allow the system to lie to the children and just, come online and just reveal to a few people who happen to come online and tell them, yeah, you've been lied to, or the Earth is not a globe, or these people don't have proof of a globe.
Okay.
That's the point here when I was asking about...
Sure. I don't want it 4 more times.
For...
Okay. I don't need it 4 more times. I heard it in the pre-show as well. And I'll give you the same answer I gave you in the pre-show. So we're currently going to their rhetoric and quoting their magicians on their rhetoric. We've had a quote from George Musa. Chocolate read it out a moment ago. Probably knows it off by heart by now. But that quote is their priest undoing their magic of gravity and overtly stating that he's telling you how to think while simultaneously telling you it's nonsense. Now, step back for a second. You're saying he's lying. Well, why are we quoting him then? He's not lying, he's telling you straight. George Musa's being honest. Now, gravity's not a force, but you, the person I'm talking to and communicating this with, you can, therefore probably will, think of it, telling you what to think, as a force. Now, it's up to you. You have a choice when you hear that statement, which is factually accurate. It's not a force, but you can think of it as one. I'll make another factually accurate statement. Cars are not roast chickens, but you can think of them as roast chickens. Now, I'm telling the audience that if they want to think of their car as a roast chicken, they can. But it's implied that it's nonsensical.
Sometimes I think...
Let me make my point. Let me make my point, Spurs. My point is that...
Get your point.
You as an individual have a choice when you hear a statement like that to either say and accept, I can think the way you tell me to, in spite of your declaration that it's not a force, I will think of it as one. Or you can say, well, I don't have to think of it as a force then. I've got a choice in this matter. It's not actually a force, you say. I'll pay more attention to your first statement, rather than the one where you tell me what to think. So he's not lying. But we are going to go after Mr. Musa like he's a bloody boogeyman? No! They're all telling us overtly where it's bullshit, where the horizon being physical is conceptual. They tell you it's a thought experiment. So what are you going to do? Pin him to a chair and tell him he's lied? No, he's not. But it's up to you whether or not you accept the philosophy and reify it into a sphere-shaped Earth you're standing on, or just take it as a philosophy and utilise it as a way of thinking about the world and understanding the stars better. But when you take it further and you do Mick West's trick and come up with curve calculators and publish them because he's seen them part of the model, yeah, you're perpetuating the bullshit because you're trying to square your own circle. But he's one man, not a boogeyman. Probably genuinely believes all his own bullshit, like most con men
You
do.
get my point.
Go on, make your point then. Arwen's got his comments.
Yeah, I'm trying to say that what you're comparing here is what George is saying. Okay, fine, it's not a force, but it has implications. He's not saying, okay, it's not a force, there's no ball, there's no space, there's no cosmos. Just because he says there's no force, anyone can go and speak to George and say, well, what did you mean by that, George? You've seen Rumpus, you've seen Fight the Flat Earth. Well, what do you mean by that? Oh, yeah, well, we know it's a force, it's to do with Einstein, blah, 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 rhetoric. Again, you can accept it or not accept it, but children will base their lives off what they've been told. This is why I asked you earlier on, is this a mission for the person who just says, well, that I'll get a pat on the back because, well done, you've told me it's not a globe, great. Or are we trying to stop the people like George who say, okay, gravity is not a force, but this is the explanation for why we're still on a ball, why it's still in space, and all the implications are going after it. You're just comparing something like, oh, you can believe a car is this and that and the other. That has no implications. If anyone can believe whatever they want, can't they?
But you're in charge of your kids. You're responsible.
Belief,
okay, you're responsible for your kids. I'm responsible for my kids. Now I choose not to let them watch television because I think it's poison. So I've got control over that. Do they watch TV? No, because I say so. Well, things like that are within your control. Now, if you choose to send your kids to a public school, or in our case, in the UK state school, then that's your choice also. Well, if you choose to allow them to be indoctrinated and then complain to the person that's teaching them, that's also your choice. But you make that choice as an individual. And if you have people you are responsible for, in this case children, then you are ultimately the person who will make those choices. Now, you can pass it off and delegate it. I'm nearly there, Spurs. God's sake. You can pass it off and delegate it to Big Daddy government and complain how he deals with it. Or you can deal with it yourself. That's what I'm saying. This is more about introspection. And one more comment, then Arwen's patiently waiting. Go ahead.
Yeah, the point is what you're suggesting is a nice little utopia. But we have a system. We have a system that's broken. Now, if we can fix that system or try to fix the system, I shouldn't have to draw children out of a system where they're supposed to help you. So if there's an idea or a model, I've got an echo here somewhere, but if there's a model that's implemented to help children, generations in the future, but this one right now is broken, and you're saying, well, instead of fixing this system, just take them out and do your own thing. Well, I don't see why, because we had the same thing. We're still where we are now today, still through the system we had. So why should the future miss out on that? All the future children are going to have is miss out on it is the lies that we had to put up with. Still works.
Okay.
People still go to work.
Spurs, I get it.
People still drive cars.
Spurs, I get it. You see yourself as a flat earth evangelist. I don't see myself as a flat earth evangelist. I see this channel as educating people. When we talk about their rhetoric and George Musa quotes, these are mainstream things that we're discussing. Now, the fact that these mainstream things that are part of their rhetoric expose how we have reified these models, Spurs. So they tell you explicitly from day one that it's a model. It's called the heliocentric model. So are they lying to you when you chose to reify that model, Spurs? You chose to. Now, the fact... Spurs, come on. Stop interrupting me. Spurs, you're really winding me up. I'm trying to get to the end of my point each time.
I don't have any more questions because it was too long.
Yeah, but you're missing my point in this, though. I'm not arguing that. I'm saying that if people think you can build models, if there is an honest way to build a model, well, then do it. You're saying, well, don't build a model at all because it's reifying. And I'm saying that there are people who think, well, there is a way to build a model that will represent reality. So I'm saying, well, if that's honestly true and it's possible,
you're not listening to me, Spurs. Spurs, stop. You're not listening to what I'm saying. The word model is a thing that you can create. There's all sorts of different models. Look up the definition of model. And you're saying if I can create a model that's true, no, that's reification. And my point was that if you tell children explicitly from the start, which they do, that it is a model, and we, the people, choose to reify it and justify it and defend it, then that's on us. Now, if we were to go to the people who might be deemed the boogeyman and said to them, why have you lied to us? If they were so kind, they might point out the lines of text that say No, Horizon's a thought experiment. If you physically reify it, that's your problem. But you're after the boogeyman and feeling like you need to be a flat earth evangelist. I'm saying no, read between the lines in some instances, and in other instances, read the text itself, where it tells you the horizon as a physical entity is a thought experiment that will have geometric consideration. Well, that's not in any way unclear, but we've chosen to reify it, in my opinion.
Nathan, I think that would apply against adults, but I don't think you can apply that standard against children, because children don't look at the philosophy, they look at the message that's being portrayed to them on face value, which is why they always say why. You can't say to kids, this is just a model and therefore don't take it as gospel. If the teacher's telling them that gravity is a force, they're going to believe it.
Yeah, I tried to say that, but I got interrupted by Spurs. Exactly. I was going to say that us as individuals, in this instance a teacher, if I was that individual, can put their own spin on it if they've already reified the model. Now, no, there's not going to be any moderation for that teacher to stop them reifying it in the same way that Conspiracy Cats has done exactly that. But it doesn't change the fact that while you might have somebody pushing it along, and that seems to have spun out of all control to the point where everybody's reifying it without even realising it, isn't on anybody when they've made it explicitly clear from the outset that this is a model. Now, you're saying, well, children are getting overtly lied to now. Yeah, it's spun out of all control, Anthony, to the point where somebody who I'm describing as that guy that just says, oh, well, it's in the books as being a force, it's much easier to just not have further questions from the kids. Well, yeah, that guy does need that pointing out to him. He's not a boogeyman, but it's spun out of all control. It's spun out of all control because, my God, why am I constantly getting fucking interrupted, Spurs? Shut up! Why are you doing a Brenda? I'm in the middle of a thought. Yeah, it's spun out of all control. We as individuals have reified the living crap out of a model. Yeah, now that needs addressing. But it doesn't mean that we've been lied to. It means that we've reified our models that are made clear to be models in the education structure anyway.
Right. My point of that is not to make a model, it's having an honest world. You're saying, no, the system's broken, they're not giving us the truth, so I'm going to take my children out of that system and do my own thing. I'm saying, if it's possible to have a world where things can be honest, if the model can't be built, then don't build it. If it can, then build it. If you can make a measurement, then measure it. If you can't, then don't. I'm simply saying we shouldn't have to withdraw from something where things can work. It's possible to have schools where children are taught and they can have education. This is possible. So I'm saying that if right now we know, like Anthony's saying, gravity's on the force, they're teaching the wrong things in these buildings, and then we have the opportunity to do something about it, well, we should do something about it. That's what I'm simply saying.
Yeah, can I please enter? Can I
go
enter
ahead,
the conversation
Owen, go ahead.
now after
Yes.
45 minutes?
Yes.
Maybe. Thank you. So, yeah, I went through school. It was a pretty good school. It was a school that prided itself on having a lot of very smart people on it, right? So, yeah, I was taught in physics that gravity is a force. We even had this weirdo from NASA, supposedly, or some related figure that showed us the freaking magnet trick and then claimed that, yeah, that was gravity. And I even said, but is it a magnet? Can I touch it? No. So after that point, yeah, I realized most of my fellow students were good at stuff, who had some intelligence. They really didn't care about physics at all. These people are fine with learning about gravity, about that system, then getting it right, getting the right mark, and moving on and not giving a shit about it anymore. But those that are actually interested in physics, like myself, then go to the teacher like, yeah, what else is there? Is there something more? Well, guess what? That teacher tried to explain to me, yeah, you know, the thing about gravity and Newtonian gravity, it's actually not real. It's a kind of outdated. We work with Einstein now. It's very complex. We don't know if you're up to it. You know,
we got
deal
that.
With this in university. They do tell you when you ask. They do tell you when you ask. It's just they don't want to saddle up those highly conceptual mechanics, which is very tough for the average person, with students just trying to get through school, not necessarily caring about physics. That's why.
Right, shout out to, is it Chico 2J? The system isn't broken. isn't designed for us. Thank you very much for the super chat. And also a shout out to MacGyver Institute of Ninja Technology, who says Horizon Prayer, show comments 3-9, ballers hate it. Okay.
Hey, Nathan, can I give a thought on this?
Yeah.
All right, great. First, Anthony, I hope you're listening. Nathan just got through saying that he turned off the TV in his house. He's setting some guidelines for his children. He's taking responsibility to control the lies so that they don't come in. What more do you want him to do? He's got power over his family. Does he have power over 5 of his next door neighbors? I doubt it.
So in one breath, 10th man,
hang
you've
on.
heard Nathan say they're not lying to us, and then
Spurs,
you're saying
please
he's
stop
putting television
interrupting
off because
people.
they're lying to us.
Spurs, please stop interrupting people.
Spurs, I'm not done.
You do not
You'll
want to
have your
respond.
chance. Yeah, you'll get your response. Trust me. So I was in the same boat. I saw what happened. Like Nathan was seeing is what's happening. Of course, my kids have kids. I'm a grandfather now, so I'm a little further down the road. So I turned off the TV in my house. I did the exact same thing as Nathan. I decided no public schools for my kids, and it was going to be over $600 a month to make that happen. So I started another business because I wanted to make sure my kids were not lied to. Do I need to go start a second and third and fourth business for my neighbor's kids? Or is that guy's responsibility? Now, I told them, when people said, why are you sending your kids to public school? Isn't that hard, the obligation and the cost? I go, it's terribly hard. The obligation is very serious, but I care about their minds. It's our responsibility.
Right, can I
with our
respond to this,
kids.
10th man?
Yeah, when I'm done.
Yeah? So again,
when I'm
this
done.
mentality...
He's
that
not
you have-
done, Spurs. Listen to what's being said. He said, yes, you can respond when I'm done.
Oh, I thought you said... Okay, sorry. I thought you said yes.
No, I'll tell you when I'm done. So when you're looking at what's happening through the school system as a parent, and they're letting drag queens and all kinds of people come in and mess with your kid's mind, you as a parent are responsible to do something. You're not going to change from coast to coast, speaking of America, all the national education systems. You, one person, you're going to change your family. You're going to affect another family because they see how well your kids are growing up and why you did it. And it's going to be one bite at a time. That's how you do it. It's impossible to overthrow this thing the way you're talking about it. But it's not impossible. You do one family at a time, one parents or a set of parents who love their kids, who will be willing to do the things that Nathan's doing for his kids. Okay, I'm done. Go.
Okay, again, with respect, 10th man, I'm going to have to disagree and say that you don't have any idea what you're talking about here. Adam got arrested. Nathan Thompson got arrested. We are at war. It seems like you guys don't seem to recognize what the stakes are. Yeah, you can go into your own little bubble and hide away in the countryside and say, oh, I don't want to be a part of this society. I don't want to be part of this system while everyone else is suffering. But for the rest of us, for most of us, this is passionate. This is something that we feel that we're duty bound to do. We're called to do this. Now, when you say, oh, there's no lie, they're not lying to us, and in the same breath you're saying, well, I'm turning my television off because they're lying to us. This is the double speak.
Why are you putting
again, I know how
words
to
in my
say this
mouth?
respectfully and politely, but this
Why
is
are you
the
putting words in
problem
my
that we're
mouth?
having here.
Hold on.
Are we being lied to? If we are being lied to, do we hide away? If we're at war, if someone's taken over your country and you're at war, do you just run away to the countryside, get on the train and say,
Okay,
oh,
we don't need the
or
analogies.
do
We don't need the analogies. We don't need them. Right, Anthony,
Yeah,
you there?
Let me answer.
Before you do answer him, let's get some definitions. Hold on. Anthony, are you there, please? Please be there.
Yes, I'm here.
What's the definition of a lie in law, please?
You need 2 elements. You need a false statement of fact. You need the intention to deceive.
Intention to deceive. So Spurs.
Yeah.
Let's have some examples. So I turn off the TV.
Any way you want to dress it up, deception,
Spurs,
a lie, a fraud, a con, however you want to call it, right? We're going to use the colloquial term, we call it a lie. But there's been a deception, we've been deceived, we've been hoodwinked, okay? So the point is, if that's true, and we've all been hoodwinked by this lie, then we need to do something about it. Now, obviously, we can
Spurs,
hide away.
You're getting way ahead of yourself, Spurs.
Go ahead.
Listen to what you're saying. We, that would be the people, and I'm going to say us as individuals, have been, by your vernacular, deceived. So, you then extrapolate that out into a third party that's lied to us. And that's wrong. You've been deceived, Spurs. Now, are you still deceived? Good for you. You're not deceived anymore. Now, the TV can deceive my children if I let it deceive them. Now, is there an overt liar behind that? No, not necessarily. Because the intention may not be there at all. It might be completely unwitting. But that doesn't mean that what they're showing on the gobble box isn't nonsense. It is. So I choose to not expose my kids to that because I don't want them to be deceived. Like I was deceived. And that's on me.
Mm-hmm. Can I just ask, what do you think the street activism is all about? Why do you think the people do that? Why do you think they go out and
hold on, just 1 second, Adam.
Drive miles, spend days and days and weeks and weeks? Why do you think they do that?
Didn't hear you because Adam was trying to speak. Go ahead, just get your point out, Spurs, and then I'll go to Adam. One more time,
Adam?
Spurs. Whenever I want him to go quickly, get long pauses and endless diatribes. Got 4 minutes left, Spurs. Hopefully we can get a concise point out here, then I'm hoping to go to Adam. Dead air isn't what I want.
Go to Adam. I just wanted to know why you think people do activism, why you think people are active, and why you think people spend hours...
I'll tell you because they're embarrassed. Because they were deceived. And their embarrassment leads them to let everybody else around them think that they're being deceived by someone else, rather than admitting to the fact that they've been deceived. It's a pride thing. There you go, there's my opinion. It won't win me any fans whatsoever. Go ahead, Adam.
No, that's fine. I'm just asking. That's fine. Go ahead, Adam. That's what I was just asking. Yeah.
I think that's probably part of it. Yeah, the frustration of being deceived. I think what motivates people to carry on is to try and make other people aware of it, and that's important. But I think that's wholly different to what I think the issue is getting kind of slightly conflated with, which is your responsibilities as a parent. I didn't send my kids to private school. I could have done. I don't think there's that much difference. What's important to me is to engage with my kids and discuss the rhetoric as they bring it in. I can't, as they get older, you can't hide the world from them. So for me, it's important to be able to discuss the nonsense with them and get them through it 30 years quicker than I got through it. That's the only fight I can definitely win. Now, going out there and doing activism stuff that you end up getting rumbled in Rome or whatever is for me rewarding. I'm not going out there preaching any new model to anyone. I'm just out there trying to wake people up to the lie that deceived me for so long. Is it embarrassment that motivates me? Probably not. Maybe the first time
I don't think so,
anger and frustration at it, but that's how I'd say. But I think the two issues are very different, and one's about your responsibility, which you can either decide to or not engage in with society, and the other one is a full-on responsibility you have to engage in with regards to your children if you had any intention of bringing people into this world for a better purpose.
Right, I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about this in the after show, so stay tuned if you're watching on the Nathan Oakley channel. In the meantime, I'm going to shout out a couple of super chats. So shout out to Joe Mama for smashing the super chat without even saying anything. Just thank you very much for supporting me. Also shout out to Retro Bill, who says, if Wednesday is known as Hump Day, why isn't Tuesday and Thursday obscured at a distance of Sunday? Well, that's a very good question. Thank you very much indeed for your support, Retro Bill. Once again, I'll say if you are watching on the Nathan Oakley Premier stream, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching live on Nathan Oakley 1980, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. Also, of course, a massive thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making this live show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on Nathan Oakley premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!